Our project, Snowbound Rehearsal of Death, is an interactive narrative detective game that combines genre elements of mystery, puzzle solving, and light psychological horror. The story is set in a snowbound lodge, drawing on the closed circle mystery structure found in classic detective novels. This setting not only isolates the narrative from the outside world, but also functions as a design constraint, limiting character movement and narrowing the pool of suspects, thereby focusing the player's attention on the relationships between the characters and their hidden motives. Following Jenkins, we treated the environment not just a backdrop, but as a space where narrative meaning is actively constructed. In our project, this is reflected through the use of environmental clues and the constrained spatial design that supports investigation. Moreover, we have employed dark and suspenseful imagery to enhance the aesthetic style and have incorporated certain surreal elements. We want our game to be designed for a broad audience. The target audience for it consists of players aged 14 and above who are interested in puzzle solving and deductive gameplay. Although the story revolves around a murder case, it avoids visually graphic violence, instead creating a psychological sense of suspense through the game's atmosphere. In the game, players assume the dual roles of both victim and investigator. The player initially enters the narrative as the victim. Following this, through a process of identity displacement, the player awakens in another character's body and must investigate the death of the character they originally inhabited. By situating the narrative within a constrained and unfamiliar perspective, this design intensifies a sense of uncertainty and subjectivity, encouraging players to actively interpret and reconstruct events. Additionally, the game adopts a nonlinear narrative structure, breaking away from the traditional chronological unfolding of events. Players are not given complete information at once. Instead, they must piece together fragmented clues, different character perspectives, and key moments in time, gradually reconstructing the timeline of events as they progress. While RSA suggests that player choice make parts of the text more or less accessible, our design explores this idea by deliberately restricting for access to information. Through this, we aim to reinforce the idea that narrative meaning is not passively received, but actively constructed through exploration and interpretation.
When devising the core gameplay loop and rules, we used branching choices to shape narrative progression and lead to multiple endings, emphasizing player agency. However, in practice, we found this agency could not be fully open-ended. Instead, it had to be structured to guide players and maintain clarity within a limited playtime, revealing a tension between freedom and control. This aligns with Ryan's argument that the narrative potential of interactive texts depends on the underlying structure of links, as the player's experience is shaped by how the game's branching pathways are designed. Therefore, during the development, we realized that interactivity does not simply provide freedom, but shapes how the story is accessed and understood. After that, we will focus on our development process and the key decisions, revisions, and compromises that shaped the final prototype. One of our first major decisions was changing platform. We initially planned to use RenPy, but quickly realized it required more coding knowledge than we could manage within our limited time frame. We therefore moved to Orange Game Maker, a Chinese platform designed for narrative-driven games. It offers built-in assets such as character sprites, backgrounds, music, and editable UI templates, making it more beginner-friendly. It also helped us avoid potential copyright and ethical issues from using external materials. This was not only a practical decision, but also a narrative one. As Alexander suggests, storytelling is shaped by the technologies we use, meaning that platforms are not just tools, but structures that shape what kind of stories can be told. Orange allowed us to focus on writing, atmosphere, and branching dialogue rather than coding. However, this convenience also introduced limitations, particularly regarding system complexity, customization, and the use of a Chinese language interface during development. The second challenge was narrative construction. As a detective game, we wanted players not only to witness events, but to reconstruct them. A key difficulty was balancing player participation with the possibility of misdirection. Jewel argues that games rely on goals that players can interpret, as well as obstacles that prevent them from easily achieving those goals. At first, we only considered how to enable players to find the murder weapon directly and thus identify the killer. But we then decided that the truth should not be revealed too directly. Instead, we wanted it to gradually emerge through memory, investigation, and deduction. After brainstorming, we decided to introduce a time-based narrative trick mechanic. The protagonist initially appears to die from strangulation, but players can later infer that poison had already taken effect earlier by interpreting the timeline of the story and by collecting evidence. This turns time from background information into a core gameplay element, since the timeline becomes something the player must actively reconstruct. This design process made us realize that in detective games, the deceptivity of information is as important as clarity, as players must be able to meaningfully interpret clues. World building was another highly iterative process. As Wolf suggests, details that do not directly advance the plot can still enrich an imaginary world, enhancing realism and deepening immersion. This shaped our approach. We needed players to believe in multiple layers of the world, including the isolated snowbound lodge, the attack sequence, and the supernatural body transfer premise. To achieve this, we continuously experimented with audio-visual design. For example, we used suspenseful music in tense scenes and warmer music in lighter moments, added snowfall effects and wind sounds, and used flickering transitions and heartbeat sounds to convey dizziness. When designing the attack scene and the transition into the supernatural space, we struggled with how to effectively enhance these key moments that drive the narrative towards its climax. After realizing that simply changing sound and visual effects was not impactful enough, we decided to create a frame-by-frame, stop-motion-like door-opening animation to heighten tension and build suspense. We also used opacity changes and particle effects to visually suggest the moment when the soul leaves the body.
We also added suspect character cards to help players quickly grasp and remember key information, allowing them to feel more in control during the investigation. Additionally, our ending structure evolved from a true ending and a bad ending to include an open ending, increasing player freedom while also reinforcing the game's supernatural logic and overall coherence. Meanwhile, some of our interactive ideas were only partially released. First, the trust system. We intended for interrogation choices to affect each character's trust level and influence what information the player could access. Arseth describes ergodic texts as a requiring non-trivial effort from the player, where that effort meaningfully shapes how the text is experienced. We wanted player choices to matter in this deeper way. However, fully implement such a system would require more branching paths and technical complexity than we could manage. In the current prototype, trust changes are only indicated through text, without fully altering the narrative. This limitation highlights that sometimes building infrastructure that truly embodies player agency is more difficult than designing its appearances. Finally, some elements remain unfinished due to time and technical constraints. including certain room interactions, evidence branches, and a save system. Hence, we present multiple narrative paths through edited gameplay recordings, rather than real-time save states. Rather than hiding this gap, we reflect on them directly as they made us realize that creating a digital storytelling artifact involves constant negotiation between narrative ambition, interactivity, technical skill, and time. Therefore, based on the current prototype we built, our future goal is not only to extend the storyline, but also to further enhance player freedom, engagement, and the integrity of the game mechanics. First, we aim to refine existing system to better support player lead deduction. For instance, future interactions could have a more robust save and load system, and a notebook system to track clues, character relationships, game properties, and deductions. This way, players are no longer passively following a plot rail, but actively organizing information and constructing their own logic deduction. Besides, we want to refine our trust system so that characters with high trust levels may provide more comprehensive information, whilst those with low trust levels may withhold clues, refuse to cooperate, or even mislead the player. Furthermore, we can introduce more complex branching options and endings, and expand the currently relatively simple case-solving process and motives into a more complete, long-form deductive suspense narratives.
The long-term vision of this project is to grow the game from a test-based prototype to a more free-form, gamified, interactive experience with potential for cross-media applications. Examples include providing players with a means to create a character including a name, look, and personality at the start, with the personality attributes also changing depending on the player's choice in the storyline, and in turn influencing the subsequent plot development. When Louis et al. Found that player identification is linked to how players identify with their in-game character. Thus, character customization can enhance player connection to their characters. More importantly, we plan to add gameplay mechanics to enrich replayability and changes for our players. For instance, for the difference puzzle, code-breaking puzzles, and time hide-and-seek minigame. Ultimately, this project could evolve into a multiple media storytelling project by interacting live-action drama or high-precision game modding animation. As Monovich states, new media consists of modular and variable works which can be constructed from multiple media elements and exist in many different forms. Our further ambition is to develop a snowbound rehearsal of death into an atmospheric story world composed of multiple media elements, games, videos, and interactive text in the future. Last, in terms of collaboration, our group worked with a strong focus on fairness, coordination, and efficiency. We first co-created the project from initial brainstorming to a detailed interactive script, and each member took responsibility for a specific part of the game's development. For the video essay, one member handled editing, while the other three focused on writing. We use shared Google Document to track both group discussion and individual progress, and maintain a development log to stay aligned and efficient. To ensure visual consistency across different parts of the game, we document the assets we used, such as characters, sprite, and backgrounds, so that all members could easily locate and reuse them within the platform.